Welcome back to Leaders Live. I'm Charlie Stevens, your host. We had a great episode last week with Gil Ayal, the founder of Hyper Brands. Key takeaway is a quote from Mario Andretti. If everything seems under control, you're not moving fast enough. So innovate and turn it up. Today we're on Crosby and Prince, where Silicon Alley starts, home of the top tech and venture capital firms in the world, to meet with Stephanie Manning of Lerer Hippeau, which is one of the top VC companies in the city. Let's go. Welcome back to Leaders Live. If you want to know how Lerer Hippeau has become the top VC fund in the city and most active, best reputation, you are in the right place. I'm here with Stephanie Manning, Director of Platform. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. We're going to start the countdown clock, so hopefully people can share and get this going, and let's get some views going, right?
Send your questions, people.
Yes, I like that. Nadal's going to hit the music. We got the music going. So it's a little bit of.
Oh, you don't hear the music.
I wish we could hear the music. It's a cool beat. It's like this tribal beat.
Is it the same one? Do you use the same song for all of them? Or
I like the intro song a lot.
Oh, so
it's like
go-to intro song.
It's not even a song. It's just like a cool beat that Ikram started. So
I heard it on the Dream Adventure as well.
Right.
So it's that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. It's like a real TV show with a whole intro
Yeah,
song.
I mean we're bootstrapping here, right?
With this whole team.
We're growing.
Are you going to hire more people for this?
If people want to volunteer, sure. If people want to reach out and volunteer, yes.
There's a whole crew here.
Yes.
I love it.
Solid crew. I think this office is the coolest office we've been in so far.
It really is. My favorite is the Legos. Those were all single Legos that were built into that. I wish I could say we did it, but we did not.
Like the MTV fish tank there.
I know. Well, Kenny used to work at MTV. And this was actually the original Huffington Post office.
Really?
Yeah, so this floor and the floor above, because Kenny co-founded it with Ariana.
Right.
And then Eric was the CEO after his time at SoftBank, well, during that time. And so we've never moved.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Nice building, nice location.
Yeah, it's good. We have another VC from across the hall. Billy, the shaving company, just moved in.
Oh, yeah.
We saw like
gotta
a
get them
ton of
on.
razors getting delivered.
Yeah.
They're actually not in the portfolio. One of
Okay.
the few-
I just reached out to them.
Really?
We're gonna get them.
Nice. Yeah. Just go knock on their door.
Right? Yeah.
Guerrilla marketing.
Exactly. We're live. We're back.
We're back.
Welcome back to Leaders Live. Charlie Stevens, your host. Stephanie Manning, Director of Platform, Lerer Hippeau.
Hey, everyone.
Before we get started, we have a lot of great stuff to talk about. People are asking, why do you do this? You're a real estate guy. You know so much about real estate. You're so good at it. No, I'm just kidding. But like, fourth floor, sure, it's like there's some space available at 75, but that's boring stuff. That's boring stuff. We're here to talk with industry leaders because relationships matter. That's a quote I'm taking from LinkedIn. That's one of their mantras, relationships matter.
They do.
Yes, and we want to talk with these industry leaders because we want to understand how they operate. And once we understand how they operate, we can connect them with like-minded business leaders. And if we do that, hopefully that helps them grow, helps our relationship grow, and everybody else grow, and people watching grow too. Yeah. They can learn from this. And we're going to get rolling right now with a little bit of background with Stephanie. Stephanie started at AppNexus. You were a campus recruiter,
yes.
and then you worked into the VC firm Workbench.
Yep.
So bring us back before you were here at the Mecca of VC. Let's talk about working with startup and kind of rolling into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I joined AppNexus right after graduating from college and was on the campus recruiting team.
Right.
Was there for 2.5 years when the company went through hypergrowth. So we grew from 300 to 1,100 in
yes.
2.5 years, and went from a startup to really a mid-sized business. And being on the people team gave me a front seat to see all of the people challenges that can happen at a startup and how companies that really think people first will excel, which AppNexus, given the acquisition, clearly did. They're an incredible company, and we're always very people first through everything that they did. So towards the end of my time there, I knew I wanted to take that lesson with me and find a role where I would continue to work with people, develop my network, and really spend time at People First organizations. So came across Workbench, which is an enterprise VC fund here in New York, but they also ran a co-working space on 5th Avenue and 16th Street.
Right, great location.
Amazing location. It was actually, I used to live on 16th and 6th, so the best commute I ever had.
Yeah.
I was never able to not come in on snow days though, which was kind of a bummer, but those aren't too many. But was there, and with the 32,000 square foot co-working space, we had all these startups working out of the space, and it was really rooted in community, and specifically the enterprise community, and bringing enterprise leaders, both corporates and startups, together. We'd like to say we were at the intersection of suits and hoodies. So was there doing all things community, events, and then also was tasked with figuring out what does talent mean at a VC fund, because in addition to the co-working space, Workbench was a VC fund that was writing checks into really seed plus and Series A startups and some Series Bs. So was tasked with that.
So what does talent mean? I mean, you were challenged with that. What did you come up with?
So talent means different things at different places. At a place like Workbench that had both portfolio companies but also community companies, it was really important to get both of them involved in a lot of things and bring in enterprise talent into the space across specific functions. So a lot of our stuff was rooted in what we were really good at, which was events and community building. So we hosted everything from enterprise sales dinners to enterprise marketing lunches, to head of people roundtables, to just bring great New York talent in. There's a big difference between a marketer and an enterprise marketer. Even there's a difference between a SaaS marketer and an enterprise marketer. There's just that skill set that not a lot of people have. So we thought about it a lot from an event strategy, and then also thought about then how do we filter candidates and people that we're meeting to our companies. So built some systems, built some tools to help do that. We started to put together an enterprise sales playbook. It's something that is something hard to understand in the beginning if you're a company. How do I hire enterprise salespeople? How do I think about SDRs versus account executives versus a director of sales? Do I think about industry expertise and domain knowledge, or do I think about someone who has a deep sales background? Does someone from corporate make sense? Do I need someone who's been at a startup? How do I train people? So we really wanted to try to get all the information we could from the people in our network, in our community, and help share that with the entire portfolio.
Right.
I was actually only there for a year and a half. I think Workbench and VCs and startups feel like dog years, so it felt like a lot longer because I did so much, and it was so fast paced, but left there in April 2017, and then shortly thereafter joined Lerer Hippeau.
Yeah, you leveraged your network to come to some of the best. Right?
Yeah, I actually met someone from Lerer Hippeau who was doing product stuff here. I knew him through just the VC platform group, and he reached out to me. So it really was kind of my first instance of your network can really help excel your career and push you forward.
Yeah, so let's talk about Lerer Hippeau.
Yeah.
I mean, we're here right now, awesome office.
Thanks.
I think I said it's
I wish I could take credit for it.
Yeah, one of the nicer offices, definitely been in, very cool stuff. Let's talk, I mean, it's an early stage VC fund.
Yep.
Let's talk, it's got the investment side and it's got the platform team, which you head up. Can you talk a little bit more about what Lerer Hippeau is doing?
Yeah, so like you said, we're an early stage VC fund here in New York. We were founded almost 10 years ago on the idea that there wasn't a New York first fund that was really only investing in New York companies. All great New York founders were going to the West Coast for some of their money. So Ben Lerer and Ken Lerer, who are a father-son duo, teamed up with Eric Hippeau to really create what is now Lerer Hippeau. We used to be Lerer Hippeau Ventures, dropped the Ventures, now just Lerer Hippeau. And over the past 10 years, we've invested in over 300 companies. We invest across all categories. So if we had to boil the ocean, it would be consumer tech, e-commerce, digital media, emerging technology, and enterprise software. But nothing
all the
really,
fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. Healthcare's in there too. There's so many categories, but we really are generalists.
Yeah.
And when we say early stage, change. We're really one of the first institutional checks to come in.
Okay.
Seed investing has really shifted over the past few years. Check sizes has changed, where the company needs to be has changed, but we really want to be one of those first institutional checks and partners to a company. So now we invest in, we continue to invest in all categories. We continue to be New York first. About 60% of the portfolio is here in New York, and the remaining 30 to 40% is mostly Bay Area and LA, with a few sprinkled throughout the country. And actually, Canada's becoming a fourth market for us. Yeah.
Look at Canada, first winning a championship, and now being a part of this team.
I know. I felt like the Bay Area versus Toronto was just like very symbolic in terms of what's happening in tech too. So I liked it. I'm not a big sports person, but
it's all right.
I'll pretend I am.
Yeah. So also, you're investing in some of the biggest companies, BuzzFeed, Warby Parker, SeatGeek, Plated. Venmo. Yep. Big shout out to Ikram, who was hey Ikram, what's up? But how do you? Let's talk. How about this? You invest in these firms, but your side is the platform team. Let's talk about what you do on that platform side of it, which is unique to a lot of the VC firms, but which is not becoming as unique as before. You're growing this out. I think you're a leader in this, but what are you doing on the platform side?
Yeah, like you said, platform has, I think, become really popular in the last 5 years. I think it used to be a nice to have and is shifting to a must have for funds. There are definitely the stories of how way back when the Bay Area funds, the big ones, Greylock, Andreessen, all had, services teams. But I think platform as we know it today has really become new in the last 5 years. And we define it at Lerer Hippeau as all the ways that we support our companies after we invest in them, in addition to how we talk about Lerer Hippeau and how we brand ourselves. So I like to break down our team's roles and responsibilities into about 5 buckets. So we have talent, which Amanda on my team oversees. That's how we help our companies think about finding, hiring, and retaining top talent.
Very important, especially growing.
Yeah, and something that I, from my time at AppNexus, feel really passionate about, and Amanda is a phenomenal leader in that space. So that's everything from helping our companies find top talent to helping them understand best practices when it comes to people. We also do, on the platform side, the second bucket is content and brand. And I guess you call that the marketing bucket. Natalie on my team oversees that. So that's all of our original content, our media strategy, our Twitter, our Instagram, follow us, and our daily roundup. It's all, the third bucket is community. So we have, with over 300 investments in the past 10 years, a network of about 450 founders, which is really power in numbers when it comes to sharing the hard thing about hard things. So we really try to foster that community, and we do that through the fourth bucket, which is events. So we host about almost one event per week. They range in size, scale, and time. Everything from a dinner to a roundtable breakfast to a workshop to our annual summit that we host every October with our LPs and founders. And then the fifth bucket is what I've started to brand as network. So I call our team a team of dot connectors, and my job is to really make sure that our fund, our founders, and the New York ecosystem, that we're connecting the dots through all of them. And our founders know everyone that they need to know, whether that's a vendor, whether that's a great real estate company to work with to find office space, whether that's another founder they need an intro to who could be helpful, a digital media agency. So that's kind of the fifth bucket of platform. And then there's always the miscellaneous stuff too that's harder to categorize, but that's how I think about it and we think about it here.
Yeah, I like that dot connector bucket. I like to think of myself as a dot connector too, or a glue guy of sorts. It's a sports reference. But let's talk about, you're dealing with growth, you have passion for growth too. When looking at new hires, what's important for a startup and trying to figure out who is a good fit for the new hire?
So thinking about how startups should think about hiring, or VCs?
Let's do both, I guess.
Okay. Startups, I think it's really role dependent. I'd say one thing that I've seen startups do that I don't love is they get so fixated on too many hard skills that when you're writing a job description, there should not be 8 requirements in terms of skills. I really push our founders, hiring managers that we work with to think about what are the 3 to 4 most important skills that person or a new hire would need in the job, and then what else is a negotiable, because I think people end up missing out on candidates. Folks don't apply. There are statistics that say, women will not apply for a job unless they think they are 90% a fit, whereas men will submit their resume if they think they're 50% a fit. So that ends up skewing numbers.
Yeah.
That's where I think some of the pipeline, when people talk about the pipeline problem, I think that happens. So that's something I don't love in startups. But in startups, I think it's to really come up with a hiring philosophy and coming up with values early and then hiring against those. So that actually I don't think is culture fit, because I don't love the term culture fit. I think that leads to homogenous hiring practices. But I think if you come up with 4 core company values, they can be everything from trust to be transparent with your customers to excellence, to always give and receive feedback. I think if you hire against those, you end up with a really great workforce who's all on the same page and working towards the same goal.
Yeah.
So that's on the startup side.
I like those 4 values. I'm going to point that out right there. I'm going to extract that one.
I don't even know. I just pulled those out of nowhere. We talk about our other companies, their values, and I think that was a mix of all of them. And then on the VC side, VCs don't scale the way startups do, so it's hard to share hiring practices. It's the reverse conversation where I'm talking to people interested in getting into VC.
Yeah.
And by the way, we've written a ton about this on the Lerer Hippeau Medium because it's a question we get asked all the time. I really think that figuring out why you want to get into VC, the type of firm, we're an early stage firm, the type of work and investing we do is a lot different than a growth stage firm. Thinking about, are there certain areas that interest you? We're generalists, and if you're obsessed with only consumer companies, you should find a consumer fund. And then also I always talk to people about how startup experience is, I think, in my opinion, the best experience to get before a fund, because then you really have empathy for founders and operators. You sit on the other side of the table and you know what it's like. So those are
makes sense.
Kind of my tips.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Let's work our way into network and collaborations.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on the LinkedIn network, which is all about collaborating. Hopefully people can see this, take some good tips from you, like you've already given, and reach out to you, and we could all network and grow together. So how does one grow a network? The best way to grow a network, or some tips you can give on growing a network?
I think the best way to grow a network is to make sure that you're thinking about your kind of current relationships and then also future relationships and relationships you want. So I think on the current relationships, really making sure you're fostering relationships and remembering that relationships are two-sided, but they don't always need to be in a single instance. I think we always talk about, in order to get, you need to give, and that's true, but sometimes it's okay to ask, and there will be a time when you need to give. So I always try to think about, the folks in my network, existing network, how can I help them now so they can also help me later? I believe in good karma with stuff like that. So whether that's, someone's looking for a new job and you really do everything you can to connect them to the people whether they're starting a company and they're looking for new customers and you can introduce them to startups in your portfolio. And then you think about your future network, and I think you want to see, how can I tap into the existing folks I know? How can I ask for intros? How can I go to events to meet new people? And how can I slowly start to foster those? And I think the important part there is relationships take time and they don't always happen overnight, but I really am a believer that if you nurture those relationships, they will become strong people in your network.
That's great. That's great. And then how about collaborations? Are you working on any collaborations? Are you looking for any collaborations? Hint, hint. People could, try to connect with you, but or collaborations that have worked.
Yeah. So we love collaborating. Venture is more collaborative than I think people think it is, especially on the investing side. It's very rare for one VC to invest an entire round. Usually you'll have what people call a syndicate of multiple investors investing in a seed round or a Series A round. So you have to have a good pulse on what people are looking at. You share deals with them, they share deals with you. On the platform side, I think we've been a little slow to collaborate because I think every fund wants to have their value add services be very unique and be attributed only to them. But we've actually found in the past year or so that the more VCs you work with, the more founders you get access to, and founders really want to get together with other founders. So if you can continue open your network even more, I think it's really valuable. So we've partnered with other funds. Last week we actually hosted a big summer party with Silicon Valley Bank and NEA, which is another venture fund. We've hosted roundtables and stuff. We're hosting an event with Red Sea Ventures next week. So I think just the smart people that you get in the room, the better for everyone. So why not be a collaborator? In terms of collaboration that I'm looking for, we're always looking for people to send us great deals. We're always looking for startups in New York. So if you are a founder and you're starting a company, always feel free to send it to me on LinkedIn. I like to think I'm pretty good with my LinkedIn inbox, so sometimes it gets unruly. And then also looking for folks that are helping startups. So whether those are growth marketing agencies, whether those are vendors that are really great working with lean companies, I think that's one of the best things we can do for our companies is find some of the best people that they can work with while they have lean teams.
Right. I like that.
Yeah.
You're saying all good stuff. This is good. It's gold.
It's not scripted. We're live.
We're live. We're going to start taking questions, Q&A with Mike in just a little bit. But before we get to that, so start submitting your questions. Before we get to that, I mean, you talked about the events that you're hosting and that you're a part of. Is there a tip possibly you could give somebody either finding a good event to be a part of or making the best out of those events?
Yeah. So for finding good events, I highly suggest, one, I'm a big fan of Meetup, especially for New York. I think from my time at Workbench, we hosted 200 events throughout the year. Most of them were meetups in our space that we brought in, but so many groups, whether it's an enterprise sales meetup, whether it's a Java meetup, whether it's a women in tech meetup, I think that a lot of folks are on Meetup. So search on there, search keywords that you're interested in. The other thing I always suggest to folks is start following people you're really interested in on Twitter. So if you're interested in VC, start following the funds, start following partners, other team members, because I think a lot of people share cool events on those channels, especially when they're open. Right. For example, we hosted a panel, Hippaeu, one of our managing partners, and two of our portfolio companies spoke about the future of cannabis, everything from kind of laws, legalization, where the next few years are going, software in the space, people in the space. We shared that all over Twitter and got a ton of our followers who ended up attending. So I'm a big fan of those two forums, and I think LinkedIn's a good way too. I would be remiss to not mention LinkedIn on LinkedIn Live. Right. But I think if you can follow people that you're interested in, I think people are sharing there as well. Yeah,
even Instagram. I mean, DM people. I think I look at where people are most active, try to figure out who I like to follow, and then follow them on there. And then you have a better chance of connecting with them either in the DM on Instagram or on Twitter, private message. But questions from the viewers. Mike has the mic. What do we got? And what are we hearing on the feed?
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
Let's just start by saying there's a lot of great things you're saying, and people are really interested to kind of ask you more.
That's good.
So I'll go ahead and give you one from Salvatore.
Okay.
He's from the financial and technology sector, and his question is, what has stood out in a pitch deck as the most innovative and memorable thing you've seen as a VC?
So to be completely honest, my side of our fund, the platform side, we don't spend our days looking at pitch decks. We do a lot of the post-investment support. I'm really lucky at Lerer Hippeau that we have a pretty flat team and I get to join pitches that I'm interested in. So while I haven't seen a ton that I can pull from, the few that I have seen, I think my favorite is when you really get into the founder origin story and the founders really share why they're the best person to be building this business. I think you can talk all days about numbers and markets and ideas and product market fit and the addressable, sizable market, all of that. But like at the end of the day, especially with seed investing, we're investing in the people and why they're the best people to be building that business. So I love when we hear really unique founder origin stories and the drive for founders starting these companies.
Stories resonate. I mean, I think we all learned that from popular HBO show, but.
It's really cool. Yeah. Also, very consistent to hear people first and that philosophy being pulled even in reviewing pitches.
Yeah.
All right, we've got another one here. What did you learn at Workbench that prepared you for your role at Lerer and Hippeau, and what specific qualities do you look for when trying to identify talent/entrepreneurship?
So I think one of my biggest learnings, which I think I somewhat learned the hard way, but adjusted quickly, was I thought I could take everything I knew at Workbench, all the things we did, kind of take our playbooks and just pick that up and plop it into Lerer Hippeau and have it work, and that doesn't work. I learned quickly, that's where I learned where no venture firm is the same. You can define platform differently, you can define your investment strategy differently, you can define your due diligence process differently. So I think that was one of the big things I learned. In addition to that, I would say it's still, even though Workbench did only enterprise, hardcore tech, it still is about people, and you're looking to connect with people and think about, again, why are they the people to be building in that businesses? So I think I took that with me, and I've seen it kind of live out at Lerer Hippeau as well. There was a second part of that question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, of course. What specific qualities do you look for when trying to identify talent/entrepreneurship?
So I think you could think talent as like candidates and entrepreneurship as founders, and I think it's hard to kind of slap a few descriptors on both buckets. It really depends. But I would say self-awareness is one of the things I personally look for whenever I'm interviewing someone for my team, or we're sitting in on a pitch deck. I think self-awareness and openness to feedback is just critical, especially if you're working at a startup or building a startup. Not everything's going to go right, and your ability to ask for feedback, be open to feedback, but be self-aware to the things you're good at and the things you need help in, I think is really important.
That's a great answer. All right. We've got one more here. This is from Michael Blanchard. And his question is, if a founder has an idea, how do they go about getting in touch with your VC firm?
So I could say my DMs on LinkedIn are open. I think that's what the kids are saying these days. But we also have contact@lererhippeau.com, which is a general outreach email. So always feel free to, I always encourage folks to send their decks. That's something that's very helpful to look at to really get a sense of your company. And that should be everything from, definitely include your founder origin story and more about you and your team. I actually like when that slide is first. Talking about the product, the market, launch plans, but also if you're raising money, how much you're raising. That's a question we ask all the time. We are early stage seed investors. If a company is raising $20 million, that's not a fit for us. So I think being really clear in your pitch deck will help your process move really quickly.
That's great. Thanks, Mike.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for all the questions, too. Before we get into the words to live by and your question, I saw you were a part of All Raise and New York City Blend.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a shout out to them and kind of what you're doing with that whole community? And I figured it would be a nice little segue. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so All Raise was founded, I think about a year to 18 months ago, mostly on the West Coast, to create more female founders and funders. They just launched their East Coast cohort about maybe 6 months ago, so have been dabbling in that. I'd say I'm much more involved in NYC Blend, where I sit on the board, so can definitely speak more to that. But shout out to any organization that's looking to shift numbers in tech, whether it's gender diversity, whether it's ethnic diversity, whether it's educational background diversity. I think that the more of these groups, the better. I think a lot of people think it might be one group takes all, but I love the collaboration. NYC Blend, we started last year. It was basically a bunch of heads of platform who wanted to shift the numbers in tech, and we threw basically a bunch of shit at the wall. Can I curse on LinkedIn?
Oh, you just
did. Just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and we did a bunch of events, and we targeted heads of recruiting to build a more diverse talent pipeline. We targeted VCs to invest in more diverse founders. We targeted founders to hire more diverse folks. We targeted board members to talk about why you need a diverse board. But we're actually shifting our strategy in the coming year, and there's a lot of exciting stuff to come. We've just hired an executive director to do a lot of stuff for us, so really becoming more formal. So excited to share more on that, which I definitely do on LinkedIn.
Right, and where can people find that?
nycblend.com.
Cool, very cool. Let's talk about words to live by.
Yeah.
Stephanie Manning, words to live by, personal mantra, ethos, or just a tip. Possibly you could flow with it, but for anybody listening to improve themselves, possibly.
I feel like I need to come up with my own slogan, which I will next time we do one of these. But one of my favorite just go-to mottos is your network is your net worth. And I truly believe that the relationships you foster is what will propel you forward and make you successful. So, given our conversation today, I encourage everyone to really invest in your network, even if someone pops up on LinkedIn who you haven't talked to in a while, reach out. I've learned that people are much more willing to give their time than I think others think. So it's always worth sending a note. The worst thing someone can say is no, and that's really not that bad.
Do you have a strategy, before we get into this, like of staying connected with, you have a large network, but trying to stay connected with everybody? I mean, I've asked this to another VC firm, but it's very tough to stay connected with everybody and try to place everybody, be that dot connector. Is there a way, like, you know, even Microsoft Outlook reminders, or like some sort of strategy how to keep in touch with these people?
I wish I had a database of all my contacts. It's something I've been thinking about. I think there's some stat that I think it's up to 150 people that you can keep in your network at any given time, like a true level of network. But I think I actually love boomeranging my inbox and having emails pop back up. And I really think it's small things too. Someone says, oh, my wife is pregnant. I'll write a note in like my email conversation with them that goes to myself that says like, wife's having baby in a couple months, send congratulatory email and baby gift, and like it will boomerang back to me in a couple months. And I'm such a people are people, and I think like connecting with folks on those things, I think just like gives you a better relationship with them. So I live in my inbox, and because of that, the boomeranging helps so much. And then other than that, I think just like being real with people and trying to connect with them on things that are just work all the time is really good. So if you see something, tweet about something you're passionate about, like tweet back at them and share that too. I've seen Twitter relationships turn into real world friendships.
Right. Cool. Question for the viewers, or a comment that you could, you know, reach out to you, or just something that you could get a little bit of interaction from the community, the LinkedIn community?
Yeah, well, if there are any follow-up questions, post them to this video. I'm happy to chime in via LinkedIn. If there's a common thread, I'm happy to put out a blog post. Natalie, who does all things content and brand, would love that. So always happy to connect and just love building my network. So feel free to reach out.
Cool. I think that's it. We'll wrap up.
Cool.
That was a lot of ups and downs in that one.
I know.
We're good though.
We finished strong. We made it through.
Thanks
so much for having me.
Nadal's gonna hit the music. We're gonna roll
Awesome.
out, and we had a good time.
Cool.
So we have a little bit of I think it's like about 15 seconds.
Okay. Okay, cool.